These three cards right here, Latias EX, Pikachu EX, and Magneton, are the cards that changed Miraidon forever. In today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you guys my favorite version of Miraidon EX right now. We're going to be using this for a lot of the upcoming series or current series on the channel, where we grind out from the bottom ranks to the maximum rank in Pokemon Trading Card Game Live. There won't be any gameplay in this video. This will strictly be a deck profile with an in-depth sort of guide and explanation as to why the cards are. That said, if you guys want to buy Pokemon cards, check out comfyhobbies.com and use code SNEAKERTALK to save 5% off. It does support the channel a whole bunch, and you're supporting my team for the competitive season. By the way, we are going to be giving away one copy of this Miraidon EX with the play stamp on it. All you have to do is hit that like button down below and comment what you think about Miraidon, and if this is going to go into a binder or if it's going to go into your actual Miraidon deck. So why do I like Miraidon EX? Well, there's a whole bunch of reasons. Firstly, I enjoy a deck that doesn't rely too much on the coin toss. Miraidon EX is a deck that can go first or second and still have a very strong start. Miraidon EX is a turbo style of deck, so if you do have to go second, you're able to go for aggressive attacks with the help of Miraidon, Raikou, Iron Hands. But if you're able to go first, you're able to set up your Magnemite to evolve into Magneton and also get an extra attachment on the board, meaning your first attack will also be even more lethal. On top of that, you have a really strong Pokemon EX with Miraidon EX. It has a very strong attack, which means you can attack and knock out a lot of Pokemon EXs and Vs out there. But on top of that, it has the ability Tandem Unit, which is really strong, which means this deck can be extra consistent and you don't have to worry about breaking too often. So we're going to start off with the Pokemon cards in this list. The list I'm showing you guys right here is the list that essentially again got first place at the Sacramento Pokemon Regionals. First up, we have Miraidon EX. We have two copies of Miraidon EX. Sometimes it feels bad if you prize both, but it doesn't happen very often. I feel like a third Miraidon EX is a very valid addition to the deck. Getting your Miraidon in your hand turn one is very strong, because all you need to see is one Miraidon EX or a ball card that can unlock Miraidon EX for you from either your deck or your prize cards, means you have a very strong turn one. And it's not too hard to get turn one Miraidon on the board, because we do run 8 different ball cards, along with other ways to see those ball cards as for some extra help. Miraidon EX is amazing for a whole bunch of different reasons. The first one we'll talk about is its HP. 220 HP means it's not a super fragile EX or a V basic Pokemon that your opponent can take an easy 2 prizes off of. It comes in particularly handy having that extra 10 HP for like matchups with Raging Bolt, requiring them to need an extra energy to discard. It also means if you knocked out one Pokemon playing against a Charizard EX deck, that they're going to need an additional damage modifier to knock out Miraidon. Tandem Unit ability, one of the best abilities in the game. Being able to grab any 2 lightning basic Pokemon and add them onto your bench is very strong, especially in a deck that has its power level increase with attackers like Raikou doing more damage the more Pokemon are on the field. On top of that, depending on what support Pokemon get added to the game or what other Pokemon get added to the game, if there's a basic lightning Pokemon that's added, Miraidon's going to be able to pull it out of your deck very easily, and it allows you to basically have an instant nest ball for your Pokemon if you want to attack or pull off like a surprise attack with a Pokemon from your deck. Often very handy for doing a surprise MP very much, or a surprise Raichu Dynamic Spark, or of course there's other attacks that you can do. And then last but not least, we have the Photon Blaster attack, a very strong attack that only needs 3 energies, does 220, so you're able to knock out a lot of key Pokemon like other people's Miraidons EXs, along with, knocking out cards like Fezandipiti EX, which a lot of decks play. The only downside to the attack is that Miraidon can't attack again on the following turn unless you reset it and put it back into the active. Next up is one of our main attackers in the deck. We have 2 copies of Iron Hands EX. Iron Hands EX is one of the best cards in the deck because it allows you to take an additional prize card if you knock out your opponent's Pokemon with Amp You very much. Now the first attack does 160 damage, which isn't all that impressive, but for that extra attachment, and you only need 1 lightning on the board, so you could also pull this off with a double turbo energy to be one of the basically half of the attack cost. Iron Hands is able to take some bonus prize cards, and that means that no matter what Pokemon is in your opponent's active position, whether it be a 2-prizer that you can knock out with a Miraidon or a Raikou, or maybe it's a 1-prizer with the help of Iron Hands, you're going to be able to have a good chance at taking a 2-prize knockout on your first turn of attacking. Taking that additional prize card is one of the biggest features of this deck, so sometimes you're even able to take a 3-prize knockout if you knock out a 2-prize Pokemon, and so that's why we have 2 copies of Iron Hands EX. Now, my personal build that I had before this, we had only 1 copy but 2 is the most standard way of playing a Miraidon list. Arven SVI also is a future type Pokemon, which means you can take advantage of the Future Booster Energy Capsule if you want to slot that into this deck. It also has 230 HP, so it's even thicker than Miraidon, which means it can withstand the knockout or attack of a Calamity Storm. Now, one of the biggest drawbacks to Arven SVI is its retreat cost of 4. Having 4 retreat costs means that it is easily a target your opponents will want to gust up and try and have you let it be stuck in the active. So with the help of the new Latias EX card from Surging Sparks, we are no longer too scared about benching our hands out early, thinning it out so our generators can cook extra. Next up, we have the other main attacker in this deck. We got Raikou V. Raikou V is amazing, and it's one of those cards that if you could have a second one in the list, you really would like to. Even Landon Kettler said he would love to include a second copy of Raikou V in the list. However, he got more benefits from having a Night Stretcher instead. And Night Stretcher is an amazing item card we're going to talk about later. But basically, it could be a second copy of Raikou because you could Night Stretcher out the Raikou from your discard pile. So Raikou V is a softer Pokemon V, so it's easier to get knocked out by opponent's Pokemon that can just swing for a clean at 200 because you got that 200 HP, you got that lightning typing, which is very good for swinging into weakness for Pokemon like Lumineon V, Squawkabilly, and of course Pidgeot EX. You got the fleet-footed ability. Drawing that additional card is very, very strong. Of course, you want to try and start this Pokemon if you're in a position where you know it's going to be safe, or if you can retreat into the Raikou V and use fleet-footed before you end your turn. That's also very good. Just only do that if you know Raikou V is safe from getting knocked out on the next turn, because you don't want to be leaving a 2-prize liability in the active slot. And then we have the attack Lightning Rondo. Lightning Rondo is so good. It does 20 damage base and then 20 more damage for each Pokemon on both yours and your opponent's side of the field for bench Pokemon specifically, not their active, but their bench. So this attack scales amazingly well with Area 0 underdepths, meaning you can flood your board with a ton of Pokemon, especially with the help of Miraidon searching out all your lightning Pokemon, so your Raikou V can swing for some very quick aggressive numbers. The attack cost is only 2 energy, 1 lightning, 1 colorless, so all you need to do is attach an energy per turn and use an electric generator, and your attack is going to be up and running. And last but not least, one of the main attackers in this deck, especially for closing out the games, we got Raichu V. Raichu V is our big end game weapon against decks that are stage 2 that have a lot of health, such as Charizard EX, Gardevoir, Hydreigon, any of those big beefy 300 HP plus Pokemon, Raichu V can easily deal with. Now, Raichu V was taken out of a lot of Miraidon decks for quite some time, simply because when Flappy rotated, we had a harder time accelerating energies onto the board. But now, because we have Magneton from Surging Sparks, Raichu V is back and better than ever. On top of that, it has a very strong first attack called Fast Charge. There's like only 3 Pokemon in the game right now that can attack first if you go first, and Fast Charge just lets you accelerate an extra energy from your deck onto the Raichu V, meaning you're going to be able to attack with Raichu V for a guaranteed 120 on the following turn, and assuming you're going to attach per turn and also hit generator for at least 1 on your next turn, you're going to be swinging for 240, which is enough to KO any basic EX or V Pokemon. So Raichu V is very strong into certain matchups like Iron Thorns EX, but is also a really strong, surefire way for you to get the 240 HP damage number for attacking things like Raging Bolt. Next up, we have Pikachu EX. Pikachu EX is not an attacker. So many new players are very confused as to why do you include a Pokemon in your deck that can't attack. And the whole point is you want to be able to unlock Area 0 Underdepths, that stadium, by having a Terra-type Pokemon on your board. So because our only 2 options essentially that are searchable with tandem units are this card and Mewtwo EX, Mewtwo EX isn't as good. We had to play it by force essentially just because it was the only lightning basic Pokemon you could search for. On top of that, Pikachu is an offensive powerhouse. You have the ability Resolute Heart, which means that you don't have to have your Pokemon be scared of getting knocked out if you leave it in the active. One of the best things you can do is if you're able to retreat into Pikachu EX and leave it in the active, it's going to force your opponent to have a boss's orders or a way to gust around it for them to attack, which means they're probably not going to be playing an important supporter card, which will help them set up, such as Arven, Professor's Research, or Iono. Resolute Heart reads that if this Pokemon is full HP, it would be knocked out by damage from an attack. It is not knocked out, and its remaining HP becomes 10. So you can tank a hit with Pikachu, retreat into what you need to, and then start swinging. Now it has the attack Topaz Bolt. It does 300 damage for 1 grass, 1 lightning, and 1 metal. However, this is not our big attack that we're going for to hit those big numbers. We're really going for it with the Raichu V. Now there are other popular ways to play Pikachu EX. The most popular way is with the Lost Box engine with Comfy, because it's very easy to accelerate those mismatch energies with the help of Mirage Gate, so it makes a lot of sense. And then there's also other decks that I like to play with Pikachu EX. I like to pair it with Blissey EX personally the most. So again, Pikachu EX is just a supporter style of Pokemon, which is really here just so that your Raikou V can start swinging for even larger numbers if your opponent decides not to bench a lot of Pokemon, and it's also very helpful to have a defensive Pokemon like this in your deck. Next, let's talk about Magnemite and Magneton. This card right here, the Magneton, is the big reason why Miraidon has its power level increase by what feels like tenfold. But before we get to the Magneton, let's talk about Magnemites, because there's quite a few different versions of Magnemites that you can play that are available. Now this one right here that we're currently using for the deck is the Magnemite that has 60 HP and has the Lightning Ball attack. The other Magnemite that is worth playing that has 60 HP is this one from Scarlet and Violet base set. It has the Magnetic Switch, where it just switches your Pokemon out, and then you have the Electro Ball attack as well. This is the only other 60 HP Magnemite I believe that is worth playing. The one that Landon originally played in this Miraidon list was the 50 HP one, which is quite strong as well. It has a very good attack. You get to accelerate 2 lightning energies from the discard onto your Pokemon. However, it has 50 HP, meaning that if your opponent were to evolve their Duskull into a Dusclops and basically explode their Dusclops, they could knock out that 50 HP Magnemite for free. So by having the 60 HP one instead, we're preventing that play from even happening. And that's also important because Magnemite evolving into Magneton is a very important play in our list. And if we do have to go second, that means there's a good chance if they are playing a Duskull deck that has Dusclops in it, there's a good chance they can pull off that easy 2-card combo. Next up, we have the Magneton. This is a beautiful, beautiful artwork from Shinji Kanda from the Surging Sparks Elite Trainer Box. This is obviously the optimal artwork to play, and it has the amazing ability where you knock out your Magneton, similar to how a Dusclops would knock itself out, or a Dusknar would knock itself out, and your opponent takes an extra prize or a free prize card. So you knock out your own Magneton, your opponent takes a bonus prize card, and you get to accelerate 3 basic energy cards from your discard onto your Lightning Pokemon in any way that you want. Now this is one of the best abilities in the game. Being able to accelerate 3 additional energies for giving up a 1 prize is not that big of a deal because your opponent's usual line to victory against you, they have to get 2-2-2 as their prize race. So by giving them a 1 prizer, it's no big deal at all because it doesn't change what they have to do to beat you. In fact, now you can actually use the item card Counter Catcher, so you give your opponent the lead and Counter Catcher is now active, which means you have a boss's orders essentially as a single item card. Another thing I like to do with Magneton is if you do have a full bench, you can explode your Magneton knowing that you're going to have a free bench space, and then use that bench space to drop in your Lumineon and then use the Lumineon V's ability. Magneton is amazing for energy acceleration. It means that you can get your Raikou V up and running for next to nothing. It just has to have Magneton explode. Your Raichu V is going to have a guaranteed attack along with an extra 60 damage available. It means your Miraidon can swing for that 220 Photon Blaster with just 1 Magneton blowing up. And most importantly, it allows you to chain your Iron Hands attacks because getting that 4 attack cost can be quite hard at some times. But with the help of Magneton, all you have to do is use Overfloat Discharge and attach for turn, and then you can start using Ampu very much. Another great thing about Magnemite and Magneton is if your opponent decides to go after your Magnemite or Magneton and knock that out, it means that your 2-prize Pokemon is safe. So they're not taking a 2-prize Pokemon that turn either. So it's kind of just like a really, really strong card to have in any sort of lightning deck. And I'm sure Magneton might find its way into other decks in the future, but the fact that Magnemite is a lightning basic Pokemon that you can easily search out with Miraidon is very good. You typically want to have your turn 1 tandem unit involving a Magnemite on the board if you can, because yeah, you want to get your Magneton evolved as quick as possible. Now, as far as my choice for Magnemite goes, I think I'm going to be switching to this Magnemite for the Toronto Regionals. I like the idea that it has the free switching attack available, and swinging for 10 could also be pretty useful at times. I don't think swinging for 20 is as useful as having that extra attack being able to switch if your opponent decides to try and, play like a Snorlax and put your Magnemite in the active, then you can just attack with this Magnemite and switch it out. However, we do not play Zapdos in this list from Pokemon Go, and Zapdos is a really strong single price Pokemon that gives your lightning basic Pokemon an additional 10 more damage. So if you were going to play Zapdos in your deck, it's definitely worth playing this Magnemite as well, because therefore your Magnemite could swing for 30 damage, which is enough to knock out particular Pokemon like Pidgey, that's 50 or 60 HP. It can also clean up a Roaring Moon that used Frenzy Gouging that has 30 health left. You can use Magnemite plus the Zapdos to attack with that as well. Next, let's get to the rest of the support Pokemon in this list. We have Lumineon V, obviously not an attacker for this list since we're not playing any water energies. Lumineon V is a staple in pretty much most decks out there. Being able to use your Ultra Ball and grab it from your deck to then convert it into a supporter card of your choice is very strong, and we really want to be playing a supporter every single turn, and we do have a lot of balls in this deck. So your turn 1 Arven is the go-to that you're really going to try and go for, but being able to Lumineon V for a boss's order so you can just gust up and attack what you want on demand is very good as well. Lumineon V and the other start Pokemon that we really want to support our deck with, Squawkabilly, are also two cards that are two prize liabilities, which are very easy to knock out because they're very low on health. Well, if your opponent discards your Area 0 Stadium, you are just going to quickly discard these as well to get rid of those liabilities. Comboing that with the help of Night Stretcher is really strong. If you have your Lumineon V in the discard, you can use the item card Night Stretcher to just bring it right back into your hand and then reuse the ability once again for late game. Next up, we have Squawkabilly EX. This is a really strong card for your first turn, but it's only really good for your first turn. You got 160 HP, and you're here using it for the Squawk and Seize ability. It says discard your hand and draw 6 cards. You can only use this ability on the first turn of the game. This is really strong, especially because we really want to see our Miraidon at turn 1. We want to see the ball cards turn 1 so we can start setting up. So Squawkabilly is really great for helping you set up turn 1, and then it also quite useful in the Cloth matchup as well. You also have the Motivate attack here for 1 colorless. It does 20 damage. You get to accelerate 2 basic energy cards from your discard pile and attach them to your bench Pokemon in any way you like. So it's really strong if you're trying to charge up an Iron Hands, or if you're setting up a big Raichu attack, or if you were setting up a Mew attack for later on. Squawkabilly is a necessity for every Miraidon deck. You want at least 1 copy, and yeah, it's just really good. It lets your first turn in the game be extra aggressive. Whether you're going first or second, Squawkabilly is always a fantastic card you're happy to see. Next up, we have Fezandipiti. Fezandipiti EX is a strong support Pokemon for only when your opponent knocks your Pokemon out on the previous turn. You get to draw an additional 3 cards, which is very good. It is very good. You don't really use the attack, so we don't really need to get into that, but it also has 210 HP, which means it's a stronger, healthier EX 2 prize basic, which means it's not as likely to get knocked out as easy compared to a Squawk or a Lumineon V. Now, say if you have an empty or a low card hand, a really easy way to refill it is of course by using Mew EX's ability, followed by Fezandipiti's ability, followed by Raikou's ability. You're essentially able to draw 7 additional cards out of a 0 card hand, which is absolutely insane because we don't really have any draw supporters in this deck. Next up, we have Mew EX. Mew EX is a fantastic Pokemon as well, which has free retreat. Having a free retreat Pokemon is very important. We no longer play the Zeraora from Silver Tempest in this list anymore, just because we don't need to be giving that up as a 1 prize liability because we're already exploding our Magneton. Mew EX is great for its restart ability. It also has the attack Genome Hacking. For 3 colorless, you just copy your opponent's active Pokemon attack, which is very good. Next supporter Pokemon we have is Iron Bundle. Iron Bundle is really helpful if you want to remove your opponent's annoying active Pokemon. Iron Bundle can get that problem out of the way. It's also very useful to use Iron Bundle because say you want to attack a 2-prizer and all of your opponent's 2-prizers are on the bench. Well, if you use Iron Bundle, you can bring in that 2-prizer and then go in for the knockout with Raikou V, Raichu, or Miraidon. Or if your opponent only has single prize Pokemon on the bench, then you can gust that Pokemon up and go in for the Iron Hands play and clean that Pokemon up to get your 2 prizes that way instead. Iron Bundle is always a pleasure to see, especially because you can just use it whenever you want once it's on the bench. And yeah, being able to use a card like Night Stretcher for it is also very strong too. And again, you have so many ball cards in your deck that getting an Iron Bundle, which is basically a free Gust ability on demand, is very accessible. And last but not least, we have Latias EX. Latias EX is a Pokemon that will give all of your basic Pokemon free retreat. So very useful if, you know, your deck is a bunch of basic Pokemon, which Miraidon EX is. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that Latias EX itself has a 2 retreat cost. So there's going to be a lot of times where you might want to throw on an energy onto your Latias EX or throw on your escape board onto it, just in case your opponent wants to gust it up and has a way to turn off its ability. That way you can quickly retreat out of Latias EX. Miraidon has a lot of different ways that you can get free retreat or just, you know, a free swap in it. Latias EX is the latest and greatest way. However, if you don't want to use Latias, you can also use cards like Switch or Switch Cart, which allow your Pokemon to just switch out, but on an items ability. And then you also have the stadium called Beach Court, but we really want to be playing Area 0 as our main stadium in this deck, not Beach Court. Beach Court was the go-to way to give our basically Pokemon free retreat. Another huge bonus for Latias EX is that it's for all basics. So again, back in the day, Iron Hands EX, that would be a Pokemon that would get stuck because your Beach Court only removes like 1 retreat cost, and your escape board only removes 1 retreat cost as well. Latias just completely gets rid of the 4 retreat cost, which is really, really handy. So being able to have that free retreat is always really good to have in your deck, and of course it is searchable with the help of Nest Ball or Ultra Ball. Now, one thing to keep in mind, if you do get your Pokemon knocked out on the previous turn, and you know you're going to promote a Pokemon, and you have Latias EX on the board for that free retreat, you're always going to want to promote your Raikou V in most cases, just so you can get that free bonus draw of Fleet-Footed. Just do keep in mind, if you want to attack with it, or if you need to hit a generator onto it before it attacks, you're not going to obviously want to put in the Raikou V right away. These 3 cards right here, Latias EX, Pikachu EX, and Magneton, are the cards that changed Miraidon forever. And I really don't think Miraidon would be as good or as strong as it is now with the help of all 3 of these new cards. Next up, let's get to the energy cards. We have a lot of energies in this deck, 17 to be exact. We have 16 lightning energies in here, which is a lot of energies, but we really want our item card Electric Generator to hit, so having a lot of these just makes a lot of sense. And then we also have 1 copy of Double Turbo Energy, which is amazing because it counts as 2 energies, so if you do have to go for a Seal Stone and grab that missing piece for your Amp You Very Much puzzle, this can be the final piece you're often going to go for. Next up for stadiums, we have 2 Area 0 Underdepths. This card is what allows our Raikou V to hit for some big numbers, allows us to remove our liabilities from the bench if your opponent decides to remove this stadium, and you want to have 2 copies of it because you always want to make sure you have access to it. If one does get prized and you only run one of the big game plans for this deck, going wide with your bench, is completely off the table. So have 2 copies no matter what. Next, let's get to the supporters in this list. We have 4 copies of Arven. Arven is insanely strong, being able to grab an item card of your choice, which is, you know, very good, like a Nest Ball, an Ultra Ball, an Electric Generator, or even the ace-spec of our deck, Secret Box, plus a tool on the side, because we have a bunch of very useful tools. Arven just allows us to get 2 combo pieces for our deck, and yeah, it's very reliable. Now, if you don't want to play as much Arven, other supporter cards that are included in many Miraidon lists include Professor's Research and Iono. Now, I'm personally trying to decide if I want to play 4 Arvens or 3 Arven in a Research or 3 Arven in an Iono, but for Arven, it's just very consistent. You know, Arven is pretty much always good until it feels a little bit bad. If you don't have a tool, you can search for it, but again, grabbing items that you need every single turn is very clutch. And then the other supporter in our deck is Boss's Orders. We have 4 copies of Boss's Orders. Seems like a must. That's what Landon Kettler said, the winner of the Sacramento Regionals. Being able to basically just always have Boss, or have a good chance of drawing Boss for game, is just so clutch, and you want to be attacking what you want when you want. So 4 copies of Boss. He says he doesn't really see a world where he doesn't play 4 Boss in the list. However, if I were to cut a card, it could potentially be the 4th Boss for an Iono instead, just because we also run Counter Catcher in this list, which is another Gusting card, and we have Iron Bundle. But just do keep in mind, the main creator of this original list, Landon, said 4 bosses is pretty much the way to go. Next up, let's get to the tools. We have 1 copy of Forest Seal Stone. It goes onto your V Pokemon, and you basically get to grab any card you want in your deck and add it to your hand. So, you know, very handy. It's very, very flexible. Some decks even run 2 copies of Forest Seal Stone for maximum consistency. Next up, we have Bravery Charm. Bravery Charm is one of the best cards in the deck. This is another card I would consider upping its count to 2, just because of how big Bravery Charm is for a lot of matchups. There's a lot of games where you really need to see that Bravery Charm early, and if you prize your Bravery Charm, you're in definitely a tough pickle. So yeah, this golden chicken nugget is my favorite kind of chicken nugget that I see in my life. And then last but not least, we got Rescue Board. I think I was calling it a skateboard all throughout the video, but it's Rescue Board, my bad. I think a skateboard is an older version of the card. And this card also is a card that will give your Pokemon essentially free retreat, since all of our Pokemon have essentially 1 retreat cost other than Iron Hands and Latias EX. Rescue Board says the Pokemon that this is attached to has 1 less retreat cost, and if it has 30 HP or less remaining, its retreat is just completely free. So being able to, you know, search this card out with Arven as your tool grab, or Bravery Charm as your tool grab, or Forest Seal Stone, these are all fantastic tool cards that Arven can grab and basically just set you up for success later in going into the game. And next up, we have our ace spec, Secret Box. This is another card that lets you grab a tool. So you're essentially, if you're playing Arven and Secret Box on the same turn, you're thinning out 2 tools from your deck. So that's where it's like sometimes you play Secret Box or you play Arven and there's no tools to grab left because you've already drawn them or used them. That's where you might want to have another tool. But oh, by the way, there's another tool that a lot of people also play in Miraidon, Vitality Band. Vitality Band allows your Pokemon to do 10 more damage. And then there's another one called Future Booster Energy Capsule, which goes on your hands, of course. Now, some decks also used to play EXP Share to keep energies on the board so their Raichu V could still linger around as a threat all throughout the game, or just have your EXP Share on an Iron Hands is also very good, but nobody really plays EXP Share anymore. Secret Box is the ace spec of choice right now, the go-to, the best, the #1 ace spec that all best Miraidon decks currently play. Before, it used to be Prime Catcher, which makes a lot of sense. However, if you still want to play Prime Catcher, stay tuned, subscribe. I'll have my Prime Catcher Miraidon list dropping later after Toronto Regionals. But Secret Box is the way to go for this list at the moment. You discard 3 cards from your hand, and then you get to search out for 4 cards in your deck. And those 4 cards have to be 1 item, 1 tool, 1 supporter, and 1 stadium. So this deck is essentially a combo deck with those pieces. Being able to grab 1 of each is amazing, and Secret Box just helps you get a ton of the combo pieces at once. Like, imagine if you're playing Yu-Gi-Oh! And you want to play Exodia, and you need those 5 pieces of Exodia to, you know, win the game. Secret Box gets you 4 pieces of Exodia, you could say, and you don't win the game instantly, but you can put yourself in a really good position. Also, Secret Box is another item card which you can basically treat as a boss's orders. So if you mill into it with a Pokestop, or if you draw into it off of a draw ability of some sort, you basically just drew it into a boss's orders that way, which feels amazing. So Secret Box is the not so secret weapon in Miraidon decks. Next up, let's get to the item cards for this list. We have 4 copies of Electric Generator. Electric Generator is our main energy acceleration engine in this deck, and to get the most amount of benefits from Electric Generator, you want to thin your deck as much as you can before playing it. Now, there's also a lot of times where you don't need to play Electric Generator just because it's in your hand. If you know your hand is going to be safe from disruption on the next turn, or you know that you can thin out more cards on the next turn, like maybe using Miraidon's Tandem unit to thin out even more Pokemon from your deck so your generators cook, you can always hold off on playing an Electric Generator. Electric Generator says you can look at the top 5 cards of your deck, and if there's any lightning energies there, you can attach up to 2 of them to your benched Pokemon. So that's why we really want to have that Latias in our deck, because this is going to accelerate to the bench only, and having Latias allows our active Pokemon to have free retreat, so then we can attack with the new Pokemon that has been charged up by the generators. Keep in mind, to really get the maximum benefits from Electric Generator, there's going to be different cases when you want to use it first or after doing certain abilities. For example, if you really want to draw into a supporter card off of your Raikou V's Fleet-Footed, or your Mew, or your Fezandipiti, you're going to want to play Electric Generator first so you can thin out those lightning energies and then have a higher chance at drawing a supporter card instead. However, if your main objective is to accelerate those energies rather than anything else, then you want to play the generator first. Again, it is also very useful just to keep your Electric Generators in hand for late game as well, because the more non-lightning energy cards you see, the better chances you're going to have at hitting your Electric Generators. With how much thinning that this deck does, I believe Landon Kaler said, like, you're able to thin out like 14 cards from your deck before playing your single generator if you're getting like an average or an optimal turn 1 start. But yeah, hitting generator for 1 feels like an almost guaranteed thing at this point with the deck, and honestly, hitting for 2 feels like a very strong odds these days as well, especially because we have so many energies in the deck. 4 copies of Nest Ball. Seeing any ball cards in your opening hand feels amazing for this list, because you're going to either want to grab your Miraidon with the Nest Ball, you're going to want to grab Squawk, you're going to want to grab Latias. There's a lot of great targets for your Nest Ball cards, and so yeah, having 4 is very useful. And because we have so many 1-of copies of a certain Pokemon in our deck, we absolutely have to include 1 copy of Hisuian Heavy Ball, which also allows us to conserve some mental energy as well. You get to look at your prize cards and pull a basic Pokemon out of it, and then this card takes its place in the prizes. So there's going to be games where you prize that key basic Pokemon. Heavy Ball will help get you there and try and get that card out. And then if you do a thorough prize check and you know that a key card is prized, like your Latias or Lumineon or something, you can have the Heavy Ball be your target for Arven or something else instead. And yeah, just being able to use Heavy Ball is really good, especially in a deck with so many 1-of copies. Next up, we have 3 copies of Ultra Ball. Ultra Ball is really common for like every single deck out there, and I know some people might be confused as to why would you have Ultra Ball in your deck when you already have the Nest Balls and you just really want to see your Pokemon. You really want to see your Pokemon. A lot of the power of this deck comes from having particular Pokemon available, and so being able to Ultra Ball for Lumineon is very good. Being able to Ultra Ball and grab your non-lightning Pokemon, because again, you're only able to search for lightning Pokemon with Miraidon, but Ultra Ball can help you get to those other cards. It also allows you to thin out cards out of your hand, so that when you do want to use your Muse restart ability, you're going to be able to guarantee you get extra cards from the restart. And also, as I mentioned earlier, Magneton is one of the best cards in the deck, and your only way to search out Magneton is with the help of Ultra Ball. And then also, sometimes you don't have 3 or 2 energies of lightning in your discard, so Magneton doesn't get its full value, so you can be able to discard your lightning energies in your hand to help feed your Magneton as well. And then last but not least, we have Counter Catcher in here for that additional gusting card that you can search out with the help of Arven, or you can search it out with Secret Box, or you can Pokestop into it from your opponent. So Counter Catcher only activates if your opponent is in the lead with prizes. Again, you can make them in the lead. You could force them to be in the lead with Magneton. And then the other card here is Night Stretcher. So a lot of decks, need to have some recovery. The only other recovery card in this deck you would want to play is Super Rod, and in fact, some decks even play 1 Night Stretcher and 1 Super Rod. So that's a very strong consideration for the list. And Night Stretcher is just really strong because it's a card that you can play and get instant value out of right away. If there's an important Pokemon in your discard pile, you can quickly grab it with Night Stretcher. Maybe you discarded your Magneton because you had to Squawkabilly it away. Maybe you have already used your Lumineon and you need to use the Lumineon again. Maybe you lost your 1-off copy of Pikachu and you need it back on the field. It's just such a strong card to have in your deck. Being able to bring back even like a Fez to draw 3 additional cards is really good too, or Iron Bundle. The use cases that Night Stretcher has is amazing. It really increases the power level of your deck. Now again, Super Rod is a great inclusion as well. However, those cards go straight into your deck, so you're not going to have instant access to them. Now you can combo Super Rod with Miraidon EX, which is very good if you're going to be Super Rodding a basic lightning Pokemon back into your deck. So it's all going to come down with your experimentation and your play style and how you have your deck built to benefit from these recovery cards. So here's the full 60 card list if you guys want to take it out for a whirl. I'll also leave it in the description down below. Now real quick, I'm going to talk about the main game plan for this deck, and the main game plan for this deck is pretty much the same into any. You want to go 2-2-2 with your prize cards. You typically want to start off the prize trade with your Iron Hands EX, and you're going to want to amp something very much to take 2 prizes off of a basic single prize Pokemon, and you're really going to want to have that Bravery Charm on your Iron Hands as well, essentially turning it into Iron Hands EX V-Star with 280 HP. Then the second attack, you're going to want to use Amp You Very Much once again, and if you weren't able to use your same Iron Hands that you attacked with earlier, you're hopefully going to be able to explode your Magneton and set up the other Iron Hands with the help of Magneton to take an additional 2 prizes that way. Now the other way to take your first or second set of 2 prizes is with the help of Raikou V. Raikou V is very strong because it can swing for some very big numbers. If your opponent has 3 benched Pokemon and your bench is full, you're going to be able to swing for 240, which is enough to knock out a Raichu Raging Bolt, or anything that has 240 HP or less with the attack of Fleet-Footed, or not Fleet-Footed, with the attack of Lightning Rondo. Now, if your opponent's active Pokemon has more health than Raikou V can handle, that's when you're going to want to bring in the Miraidon to be your attacker for that Photon Blaster instead, which is really handy to knock out important Pokemon like Fezandipiti, Lumineon, Squawk, but again, Lumineon and Squawk can be cooked with the help of Raikou. Miraidon can also attack big EX and V Pokemon out there as well, such as Regidrago V. And then your final attack of the game will typically be with a Raichu V. You're going to have your Magneton charge up your field, or you play your rest of your electric generators, and then go for a big dynamic spark knockout on whatever big beefy Pokemon they have left. And if it's not that big and beefy, then you can always, of course, attack with your other Pokemon like Raikou or Miraidon instead, or even an Iron Hands in some strange scenarios. You're gonna go 2-2-2 with the help of all these Pokemon right here. And if you guys want to see gameplay of me rocking this deck, I'll have a whole bunch on the channel. I'll leave a playlist link down below. I'll have pop-ups for more gameplay also pop up. I had a lot of fun sharing with you guys my love for Miraidon EX. If you guys have any questions or comments or anything at all, let me know in the comment section down below, especially if you want to enter the giveaway for this Miraidon EX. Click on screen for some more Miraidon gameplay, maybe a Pokemon tournament vlog, and I'll see you guys later. Peace.